Hello, all the couples out there planning your weddings, booking your photographers, searching for your photographers. It is January 3rd. Everyone has come out of the holiday coma, and all of a sudden they're like, my wedding's in 4 months. I need to get going. And I need to plan. I need to choose a photographer. I need to figure out the most puzzling question for couples. Okay, this comes up. And I see so many couples on Facebook groups going, what time should my ceremony start? How long should my ceremony be? What time should my reception start? How long should my reception be? And what time should my reception end? Okay, a very common question I see couples struggle with. So, the beautiful thing about working with me as your photographer is that I'm here to help you. I help all my couples with their timelines. I lay out everything for their wedding day to make everything go nice and smooth. I don't leave you out there to the wolves like a lot of other photographers do, because I see couples on these Facebook groups going, when should I do this? When should I do that? You're like, ask your photographer. You're paying them. Okay, that's what they do. Okay, so with me, you call me, I answer it. You email me, I respond. You have a question, I answer your question. And I help my couples and lay out their whole timeline and their wedding day, which is great for the timing of everything. So the question comes up, got my little sheets here, is this whole idea of the ceremony, cocktail hour, reception. How do we link them together to make it work? Now, the venue often may call the reception and include the cocktail hour in that. For this video, I'm going to separate the ceremony and call it a ceremony. Cocktail hour, we're going to call it a cocktail hour. And reception, we're going to call it a reception. So 3 different things. The goal is to have a kind of a seamless flow from one to the other to get to a target of dinner. Okay. That's what it seems to be. Is if it's too early, then everyone's like, hey, it's 12 o'clock or whatever. It's not 12, it's 2 o'clock. I'm not hungry yet. Okay. And if it's too late, people are like, oh my gosh, it's 9 o'clock. We haven't eaten yet. We're going to kill the photographer, not me. No, kill the bride and groom, whatever. No killing here. But you get the point, is that you want to kind of make your guests comfortable. You want to go from one to the other. You don't want these long waits in between. Just do ceremony, cocktail hour, and then reception. The cocktail hour can be used for the bride and groom to be at, or it can be used to take pictures, but we won't talk about that today. So that's kind of the goal, is to get from one to the other. A ceremony, I usually budget 30 minutes for. It's just standard. So this is a ceremony at a venue. It's not a church. It's a ceremony at the venue. 30 minutes, I budget. Now you may freak out and go, oh, my ceremony's not 30 minutes. I understand. They're usually maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes. But they often don't start on time. I don't know why, but they don't start on time. So if they start 15 minutes late, you have a 15-minute ceremony, boom, you're at 30 minutes. So it's better to budget the time than not have it in there. Sometimes people are late, there's traffic. I've had weddings where mom was stuck in traffic, and so we couldn't start the ceremony because mom wasn't there. So this stuff happens. So we know the ceremony is 30 minutes in length. The question is, when do we start the ceremony? So the goal is get us to dinner with a nice flow. In most cases, it could be, hey, we got daylight. We want to get some daylight for pictures after the ceremony. So in the wintertime, daylight savings, we may move it up a little bit. That's generally it, why we may do something like that. Maybe we have pictures before the ceremony and we need some time, so we may push it back. But that's kind of the goal, to get us there on dinner. So what I did for you in this video is I went geeky, okay? Every now and then I can have geeky moments. Please forgive me. But I got really geeky on this one. I had a real geek moment. And what I did was, I'm going to show you, I created a beautiful... What I did is I went through 23 weddings this year, because couples asked me this. I did all this work for one of my brides. Okay, this is how I get into this stuff. And one of my brides asked me, we don't know what to do about all this. So this whole video was for one of my couples, really. So I sampled 23 weddings this year to find out when did they start. And here is the data with a nice little chart. I got real geeky with Excel. So I had 11 weddings starting at 4 o'clock. So the winner, is ceremony start time of 4 p.m. Now, we had 4 weddings. Second place is 5 p.m. We have third place of 2 weddings, 3 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. Then we have some little stragglers. We got 1 wedding starting at 11, and that was, I think, a Sunday wedding. So Sunday weddings, usually the timeline is pushed up because everybody wants to go back to work and travel and all that stuff. So Sunday weddings can sometimes have a earlier timeline. So we can throw that one out. But we do have a 12:30, a 1 o'clock, and a 3:30. So if we get an idea of where everybody's grouped in, we have basically the 3 to 5 range as most of the groupings for wedding ceremonies. And the biggest are kind of between the 4 and 5 o'clock. See, that makes sense because ceremonies at 4, goes to 4:30, cocktail hour 4:30 to 5:30, reception about 4 hours or so, 4.5 hours, so 5:30, 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, 9-ish. That takes us into around the 9 o'clock range. If we do a 5 o'clock ceremony, then we're about the 10 o'clock range. So that is a good time to start your ceremony, is around 4 to 5 in this range. Okay? Now, the next question that we're going to talk about is the reception end time. So let us get back our video in a second here, once I figure this out. And we're going to talk about reception end times because that's the next thing. Ceremony and start time, reception end time. Okay, so when should your reception end? And there's no right or wrong, okay? Like every wedding is different. I don't cookie cutter brides and grooms and their weddings. Every wedding is different. And the goal for me is like, how can I make it, your wedding be you? Okay, it's not me, it's you, all right? Some couples are more introverted. Maybe they don't like to dance. Maybe they have more of an elderly crowd. Maybe there's kids, so a group like that, you don't want to be going to midnight because nobody's going to be there. And they'll be falling over. That can happen with the second one is you are party hardies. You get the party hardies and you get the young ones and they're like, yes, we're partying. We are doing it. And they go to like 11 and then they're like, John, let's go to the after party. Come on, this is great. We want you to come to the after party. Yeah, okay. I'm going on 12 hours now. I think I'll skip the after party. But you get the point. Some groups are party hardy and that's what they do. So you have to kind of sample your group, okay, and figure out what's their level of excitement, participation, and their tolerance for being out late before you decide. What can happen at weddings is people can start to trickle out. Guests can start trickling out at 9 o'clock. You have elderly people. You have handicapped people. You have people with kids and the babysitters watching the kids, or the kids are there and they're all passed out on the chair because they've been dancing for 3 hours like Energizer bunnies on the dance floor until they just collapse. So you got to get the kids home and scrape them off the chairs. So a group like that, maybe 9 o'clock is good. If you got more of the party hardies, you go later. So that is, thinking about your group and yourself as well as couples. If you're going to be on the dance floor, if the bride and groom is on the dance floor, usually the guests are going to be there too. But if the bride is like, I don't like to dance, this and that, if they're not on the dance floor, then they're like little magnets. So they go, everybody goes to them. All right, so let's look at the data. That being said, and we're going to dive into the data because the data speaks. And this is nice because this is a picture And as a photographer, I always say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So 23 weddings sampled this year. We had 9 weddings end at 10. So 10 o'clock is the winner. Woo! Okay, 9 weddings at 10 o'clock. And the second place is not too far behind at 9:30. Woo! Second place. And then the third place goes to 9, 10:30, and 11. And then we got some little stragglers out here. We have a 4 o'clock one, which may have been a Sunday. We have a 6 o'clock one here. And then we got the party hardies at 12 a.m. So my recommendation is to have your wedding reception end in this 9 to 10:30, 11ish if you're more on the lively side, with 10 o'clock being the winner and 9:30 being the second runner-up. So I hope that helps you know of when to end your wedding reception. So the next question comes up, the last piece of the puzzle, and we're going to change our screens again so we have a little face-to-face, little FaceTime. So the next question becomes, how long should my reception be? Is 6 hours too long? Is 2 hours too long? There's a lot that happens. You have introductions, you have the first dance, you have toasts, then after that there's dinner. Then after dinner, there may be more dances for the parents. There may be shoe games, cake cutting, bouquet toss. There's dancing on the dance floor. So you want to make sure you have enough time for all that stuff. Okay? Some venues take longer to get the food out. And that, I would say, is probably the biggest issue. And that's something you're not going to know. I've had venues take like over an hour between when the first table was served and the last table, and then the last table's got to eat, and so the DJ's like, when are we going to start this party? And everybody's just waiting for food to come out. So if you cut your wedding reception too short, there's not time in there for dancing sometimes. Or if the bride and groom go around to each table and say hi to every single guest and show them the ring and shake hands and chat. I've had that happen where it's like, oh my gosh, 2 hours. And bride and groom say, hey, we're not opening up the dance floor till we see every table. And DJ's like, let's get this going. And I'm just like, staying out of it, okay? So if you're going to do something like that, if you're going to do more entertainment type of things, you might want a longer reception. Or if you're like, hey, we love to dance, whatever. Okay, if you don't want any of those formalities and your group is like, hey, we're not going to be active and alive much, you can make it shorter. So let us dive into the data and let the data speak. I will not speak. We'll let the data speak. Okay, so I sampled 23 weddings once again this year for the average reception duration. And the winner is 11 weddings with a 4-hour reception time. So that does not include cocktail hour. That's just the reception is 4 hours, with the next winner, second place, at 4.5 hours, and the third place is 3.5 hours. So when people ask how long should my reception be, it's not like a real rocket science here. It's not that difficult. Most weddings are 4 hours receptions. You get a couple 4.5, and you get a couple 3.5. Always better to have more time than less in general. But if you go between 4 and 4.5 hours, you're pretty golden. Okay. So I hope that helps answer that question. So let us have some more FaceTime here. So we got puzzle number 1. Piece of the puzzle was, when do we start our ceremony? How long is it? Puzzle number 2 was, when do we end the reception? Puzzle number 3 was, how long should the reception be? So those are the puzzles. We put all the puzzles together and we come up with a block of time: ceremony, cocktail hour, reception. Now, some venues you can move that up or back. Okay, and it kind of comes together, but you can move it up. You can move it later if you know, hey, my group is party hardy, let's go later. Or you're like, hey, my group is, like falling over here, whatever, let's move it up sooner. Maybe it's daylight savings time and you want more daylight, so let's move things up a little bit more, et cetera, et cetera. So you have that puzzle now. You just kind of move it up and back to fit the needs of when can we eat and when is the best time for our guests, so that they're going to have a great time, because you want to have a good time with your guests. So I hope that solves the puzzle, the great mystery of these questions. Now, we're going to talk about church ceremonies next, because church ceremonies are their own thing, okay? They're different. I haven't talked about them yet, and they're different for numerous reasons. Okay, usually at a reception, boom, 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 one thing goes to another. Ceremony, cocktail hour, reception, goes like that. But after church, lots of things can happen, which we'll talk about. So let's dive into, I have a church wedding. How do I figure this out? Because then people get, even more freaked out, okay? And puzzled. So most of your churches are an hour. If it's a standard Catholic full mass, it's an hour. That's where they give the wine and the bread. Sometimes if they don't do that, it's like they call it a half mass sometimes, where they don't do that. And it'll be maybe 45 minutes. So 45 minutes to an hour for a regular church. Now, after the church, lots of things can happen. So, number one, receiving line. You want to have a receiving line. That's where bride and groom line up with the wedding party, and every guest says hi, hugs them, kisses them, looks at the ring, says hi, shakes hands, and all that stuff. You need to budget time for that. A lot of people don't. And receiving lines can be a time suck, in the sense that not that they suck, but that they suck a lot of time up. I've had receiving lines be over 30 minutes, sometimes 40 minutes, okay? So yeah, you have 200 guests in a church and each one takes 5 minutes to talk to the bride and groom. That's a lot of time. So you just have to factor that in. A good 30 minutes is probably safe for a receiving line. 20 maybe, but I'd say 30 just to be on the safe side. Another thing that may happen after the ceremony is portraits. Couple wants portraits on the altar, family photos on the altar, those kinds of things. Maybe the couple wants photos outside. So you need to budget photo time, 30 minutes after the church, at the church for photos. Sometimes the couple may be like, hey, we want to go to the vineyard and take pictures. Maybe the venue doesn't have a nice grounds for pictures. So maybe it's in a restaurant or something. So you have to do pictures somewhere else, maybe a park, a vineyard, something like that. So you need to factor in travel time to the venue or travel time to the portrait location. Okay, you need to factor that in. And then you got to check with the church, because every church has different rules. So they may say, hey, you have to be out of here 20 minutes after the Mass, okay, because we have another Mass, or the priest has to go somewhere or whatever. So you have to make sure you're not, they don't kick you out while you're like, hey, we got portraits, and the priest is like, nah, I'm out of here, whatever. So just kind of check with the church and find out how late can we stay here before our pictures. So factor in those things. And you also, I've had weddings where the couple goes to the venue and takes pictures before the ceremony. Okay, so you have to factor in that time as well. If you're going to do portraits at the venue before the ceremony. So the goal is, I talked about the cocktail hour before and kind of moving on from there. So the goal is, how are we going to get now time-wise for the ceremony, factoring in the hour, the receiving line, if you're having it, pictures at the altar, travel time to kind of get you to the cocktail hour as far as the guests. Generally, you do not want to have a big gap in there for your guests from when the ceremony's over to where they get to the cocktail hour. Okay, you want to be like, hey, just like go do something. Go to the antique store, okay? Whatever. Stay in the car and wait 3 hours, all right? You generally want to keep your guests comfortable and move them along and not have them be too late or too long that they're sitting around with nothing to do. Okay. Some weddings that might be part of the plan. They need to go to the hotel. They need to check in. We're going to take a break. You know, whatever. But just keep in mind that, you know, you don't usually want the guests to be around too much, too late, waiting to get to the cocktail hour or whatever. So I hope this helps you plan out your timeline. If you book with me, I'm going to do all this with you. We're going to have a nice chat, Zoom or in person or on the phone. We're going to go over all these things. We'll talk about your needs, how to tailor and customize this to figure out what's best for you, because every couple is different. Every wedding is different. And so we don't do cookie cutters. No cookie cutters here. It's really individualized care and attention. So I hope this helps you out. Demystify this puzzling question for people. And that's it. I'm going to sign out for now. Thank you, JohnMunoWeddings.com. If you need an awesome photographer, I'll be happy to chat and talk about your wedding needs, help you through this, and make your wedding be awesome. Have a wonderful day. Happy New Year, all, and we'll see you at the next wedding.